Mr. Shad, thank you for being on the Heart Dealer podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. As we were saying before, I have you to thank for being on this new software and in this new 2025 version of podcast recording because of the hiccup we had last time. You're obviously not foreign to this. What's it like being on the other side of the camera?
Yeah, you mean like conducting interviews, hosting interviews?
No,
No.
being on this side. Because I
Oh,
discovered you, as I think I said last
yeah.
time we chatted, from the Netflix series,
Yes,
which is
yes.
totally different, right?
Yeah.
What's it like being the interviewee?
Oh, I have much more experience as the interviewee. Yeah, Hip Hop Evolution was an incredible experience. I also hosted a show called Q on CBC Radio.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely have my reps in as an interviewer at this point, but interviewee is the bulk of my experience and where I feel most comfortable. I actually often tell people if I'm asked to give like a keynote speech or something like that, I often ask if it can be a moderated Q&A instead, because I just find that I speak more honestly, more freely, uh, to people's directly to people's curiosities as opposed to preparing remarks. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
I'm better in conversation, which I think relates also to performing. Like I always tell people that as an artist, I'm much more comfortable on stage than in the studio, because on stage feels like a conversation where I'm responding to what
Yeah.
I'm seeing. Whereas in the studio, it's just, I have to imagine, I have to almost close my eyes and imagine the response. So yeah, all that to say, interviewees very very comfortable for me. I always feel like when I'm speaking directly to someone's curiosities, I can be I'm way more sharp, way more focused, and I'm way more honest.
Yeah, I hear you. It's funny to think about that, right? Because there's just living life. You meet so many different people, extroverts, introverts. I'm working with a whole bunch of different artists, some of which say, all I want to do is tour and be in front of people. And then you have other ones that say, I just want to make my album and then hide behind the internet because I don't want to be in front of people.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
all of them are okay, but it's just funny that it can be so different, right? Like, so you're
Yeah.
more comfortable on stage than in the studio.
It
Um,
it's crazy, right? Like I noticed this with some artists too. Is like let's say they are in interviews. I've noticed another difference. Some artists and people in general, the more emotional they are, actually the more intelligent they speak.
mm,
When you ask them something they don't care about, they're fumbling with their words. And they're in their head. When they get passionate, it comes out like poetry. I watched a guy speak. I'm blanking on his name. It's this doctor. Somebody sent me the clip of him being interviewed. He's asked some concluding big question about really about everything, like climate change, all this stuff. He goes on this 10-minute monologue,
mm,
uninterrupted, of, I swear to you, pure poetry. I mean, it was like crystal clear, and it's because he cared. So it's
yeah,
interesting because we get told passion, love, and logic, right?
yeah,
We get told passion like clouds your vision or gives you rose-colored glasses, or in any case leads to you speaking out of turn or speaking out of pocket. When some people actually, the more passionate they are, the more brilliant they are.
mm,
Anyways, that's a little bit of an aside, but yeah, to your point, everybody's different. I definitely know I have artist friends that, like, if they have an interview coming up, they'd love to get the questions in advance so they can prepare everything they're going to say, and I'm actually just the opposite.
I am too. I prefer off the cuff. This is why I
Yeah.
love doing this podcast and having these conversations because I have notes. I'll listen to the music, I'll watch the movie, I'll read the book, whatever it is. I'll understand the background of the person because you want to be able to like drop anecdotes or relate to them more easily, especially if you've never met them, right? Like you and I are not friends in the traditional sense, so we can't have that same open conversation that I can have with my buddies.
Yeah.
You have to have some notes. I agree with you. Passion definitely helps elevate things. I also think it's really important to have facts, right? There are a lot of people that argue that if you're coming from a place of fact usually it's easier to stay calm in an argument because you know what you've researched, you know how you feel, whereas people who are unresearched might start getting emotional and heated and yelling and swearing and whatever because they don't have something to back it up.
Yeah, that's true too. But I find that's absolutely true. But I do find that people, sometimes passionate people, the facts that they can communicate,
Yes.
if they're truly in touch, is the fact of how they feel, and the facts, which are facts,
Yeah.
to be able to say I feel angry is a fact, or I feel however I feel is a fact. And it's often more of a more of an important feature of the conversation or the topic than people want to reckon with. I'm going to give you an example. I remember watching something called the Monk Debates that the University of Toronto puts on every year. This big, high profile debates. They host them in the big, beautiful wherever they do it in at the University of Toronto, and it's supposed to be this showcase for how facts and reason brought into conversation can elevate discourse and can move ideas forward. Okay,
Mm.
like universities are supposed to be based on. Okay, so this was the topic of this particular monk debate, was political correctness. On one side of the debate, there were two older white gentlemen, and on the other side was a black man and a woman. I forget where she was from. And they're debating the merits or otherwise of political correctness. And the conversation kind of devolved, sadly, kind of got a little toxic, a little icky. And I remember getting to the end of it and realizing nobody on either side could simply say, I'm a black man, so I got a personal stake in this. When people are using whatever language and I'm in certain
Yeah.
spaces, it's intimidating and it's scary, and I feel it brings up all kinds of stuff, including childhood experiences of being dismissed or discarded or called this or that. And neither of the white gentlemen could say, man, I'm a 50-year-old white dude and I feel a little disoriented and I feel sometimes villainized for saying something that I may or may not, I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like the facts are important, but we can't forget the facts of our own experience and be honest about that because it's an important part of the conversation. I feel like that conversation wouldn't have devolved if they could just be honest.
Yeah. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. It's funny because, like, I do believe that discourse is the best course. That there's been this thing that's been lost in society, and it doesn't matter about political side or
Mhm.
color, race, creed, the religion, ethnicity. What None of that matters. What matters is that we need to be able to simply have conversations with each other about any topic without getting pissed off because as a really amazing man in North Vancouver. I think he was in his mid 70s. He was a gay German guy who ran a vinyl shop, and all he did was fix like old vinyl players. And I would go in there and we'd talk about music and stuff. He had different political opinions about some stuff. I had different political opinions about stuff. But one day I was talking to him and I said, "Listen, my how I feel about this, man, what was the word I used? It was my opinion." He said, "Don't have opinions, have a position." And I said, "What do you
Mhm.
mean?" He said, "Because an opinion is just what we call things, but a position in reality is what it is because you might talk to someone and disagree with 99% of what they say, but that 1% you agree with will shift your position, and your
Mm.
life is always a shifting position based on who you communicate with, who you interact with, what country you travel to, what experiences you have. Like, you don't listen to Shad's music. All of a sudden you listen to all of his music, your position on him, on hip hop, on culture, on anything might shift. So be open to
Yeah.
that."
Yeah, I like that language too of position because it does remind us that this stuff changes. It's
Mhm.
not it's not immovable. A- And it was never meant to be and it never has been, and sometimes we can have illusions about that as well. Sometimes I see this dynamic play out where someone will have a really strong opinion. I'll just use the word opinion about something, and they're really adamant about it, and they're very passionate about it and angry about people that disagree with that position. And what I realize is that that's an opinion that they've come to actually very recently. They
Uh,
didn't always hold that opinion.
uh,
And part of their passion and their anger is actually shame, because they just come to that realization and they're kind of like ashamed of their former self, instead of understanding we all evolve and grow.
yeah.
And so if this is where I'm at in my thinking now, this is where I've grown to, this is the position I've moved to, that's natural. And I can have grace for who I used to be, which
Uh,
means I can have grace for the people who are still where I used to be.
yeah, I
But
agree.
all of that takes self-awareness, and self-awareness is very difficult.
That's what I wanted to come back to because you basically were like, hammering that point. I wanted to first talk about the broader picture of like us as a society and as a people talking to each other. But you're so right. I'm 45 and I'm still learning self-awareness. Like I had to go through a lot of crap over the last 2 years to realize that I needed to look deeper inwards to better myself, to heal parts of myself, and to be a stronger, better man so that I could be a better father to my children, a better partner to my, girlfriend, better community member, family. That's so important. And I think that that's kind of where you're heading with this. And it's a perfect segue into your upcoming album, Start Anew,
There you
which
go.
seems to talk a lot about positivity. New life is right in front of us daily, but often on the other side of risk or loss, which is so true because nothing ventured, nothing gained. Without having challenges, you don't know how to grow and next level. So talk to me about not the
Yeah.
album, because I don't like doing stereotypical shit, but talk to me about who you are right now and what like led the life changes to anew.
Yeah, man. So you mentioned having kids. I have a couple kids.
Congrats.
That's a whole Thank you. That's a whole thing that I haven't even been able to put into words. You won't hear me really talk about my kids and my music yet, because I don't know how to capture that experience. It's more than words, but it's shaping me for sure,
Mhm.
changing who I am, changing how I think about life. Um, it's not hard for me anymore when I'm trying to make a decision to zoom out 40 years into the future and go, will I be proud of this?
Uh,
Or zoom out 15 years into the future when my kids are in their teens and early 20s and go, will they be proud of this? Or will they get the right lesson from this choice? Or will they be helped by this choice or not? 10 years ago, that wasn't part of my thought process, you know? Now it's a part of my thought process. My life is a lot less about me.
yeah. You
Uh, yeah.
just to interject quickly, because I don't know how old your kids are. I have two, um, 5 and 7, and I have a beautiful little girl who unfortunately only lived for a week. And then I have two stepchildren now who are 8 and 9, or 8 and 10. Um, And that's a whole separate, conversation about the challenges and learning and growing and how beautiful family can be. But my kids, that thing that you were talking about, how it changes your perspective, your position on, like, who you are, how you evaluate your decisions, it also forced me to start accepting the crap. It started me like, you did this was a bad thing to do, you better be honest and not live in shame and accept, the consequences, and the fact that you did those things because you wanna be a good example to them. You want them to know that it's okay to err, but that
Yeah.
it's also okay to be humble and to say, "I'm sorry." So it's funny how it's not just like, be the best version and doing positive things, it's accept the bad things too.
Listen, the last song on my album, I have a line. I say, "I'm saying sorry at 40." That's a line because yeah, you start to understand more and more the importance of when you're young, you're trying to get it all right. You're trying to do it perfect. You know, you're scared of making a mistake. And I think when you're older, you realize, okay, I've made a lot of mistakes. Mistakes are a part of life. The important thing is how you move through it.
Mm,
Can you move through it or not? Do you have the humility? Do you have that kind of strength that looks like vulnerability and looks like weakness that allows you to say sorry and move through? You know, so yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head. And that's one thing I wanted to put into the album. You realize the important thing with life is not getting it perfect, it's keeping going. Just
mhm,
keep going.
yeah.
And
Uh,
not in a stubborn way. Well, a little bit of a stubborn way, but more in a, can you keep trying to be better, which requires confronting the reality of yourself,
yeah.
you know?
I've referenced this man many times before because he's one of the people that I admire, Mr. Tupac Shakur. And I think I've referenced this line too. Even a genius asks questions. And for me, that was so important because I went to university for a little while at Glendon College, which is the bilingual campus of York University. And I happened to have a philosophy professor there named Joseph Gonda. Same last name, totally unrelated. I remember the first day of class and he's like reading out the names and he's like, what the hell? Um, I'm pretty sure it was Plato or Plato's Republic. He was talking about the philosopher king. And then he alluded that to the band, the Philosopher Kings. And I could be totally wrong here, but I'm pretty sure it's them who have the song that goes, all I know is that I don't know nothing.
Mm.
And that is the point. Genius asks questions because they realize that the more we live, the more we don't know, the more we want to know, the more we have to ask and learn and grow. It never ends. And if you start to
Yeah.
stagnate, I think that that's a bad thing.
That absolutely, absolutely. You should be, human beings. I feel like human beings live a lot of paradoxes, and one of the paradoxes is a desire for comfort, but also you don't grow without discomfort. So it's like, yeah, stagnation. To your point, it's like we want comfort, and comfort is important sometimes, but stagnation, no bueno. You know, so we have to live out this paradox of like, how can I push at the edges of my comfort and how can I grow and how can I be in uncertainty sometimes, um even though there's a part of me that just wants certainty and wants comfort and wants to be reassured and wants to be, that's important too, but there
Mhm.
has to be a bit of a rhythm to it that you live, you know um physical exercise is a great metaphor. You know what I mean? What is exercise? Well, exercise is pushing your body
Yep.
to discomfort, right? And then what else do you have to do? You need to rest. That's when your muscles rebuild.
Mhm.
So there just has to be this rhythm to it.
You mentioned stubbornness earlier, and it's so true because you have to be willing to push yourself right through the hard times,
Yeah.
through the good times. It never ends. I have you also measured pressure just now. It's the cliche, right? Like diamonds are made under immense pressure. I have gone through arguably the hardest year and a half to 2 years of my life that required so much support from multiple therapists, from my girlfriend, from my children, from my family, from my friends. And I still have days when I wake up and I'm like bummed out. This is the first time I'm sharing this, and I'm just sharing this for the sake of this conversation, not because of woe is me. Uh, my ex said she wanted to get a divorce. No shade to her. No shade to her. I'm very, very specifically saying no shade to her. She's an amazing woman. I'm so happy that she's the mother of my children. Within a week, she left. My grandma had a horrible fall and fell, broke something, was in the hospital. And then within the year and a half, The divorce happened, grandma died, I had a baby, the baby died, I had emergency gallbladder removal surgery. There was business partners that left and came and went, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg. There was a couple car accidents. It was a lot. And every week where I finally felt like I just got my head above water, something was pushing me down. There was another boot, and
For
it
sure.
took me a long time to realize that, again, thanks to my therapists, um, life doesn't get easier. You keep saying, "Oh, I just need a break." All life is doing right now is doing the muscle thing where it's leveling you up so that you can start to, press more weight, squat more weight, whatever it is. And I had an awesome conversation with Raheem Mega Man Jarbo recently, and he's a father as well. He's a musician, and we talked about the analogy of the video game, that life is like a video game. It never gets easier. You just beat the level and get more experience or XP points or whatever it is so that you're ready for the next level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I mean, first off, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear some of that. That's really tough. It's the toughest things we can go through, man.
Yeah.
But also we all go through it.
Mm,
There's no way around it. Like you said, life is gonna life for all of us. My philosophy of late is you're either going through it, like you have been going through it, or you're temporarily not. And if you're temporarily not, then you got to help the people that are.
yeah.
That's got to be a big chunk of how you're thinking, and have no illusions about the fact that you will go through it. If you haven't been already, you will. Nobody is immune.
Mm. You know, you know,
Um, yeah,
sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah. That's it. No, nobody is immune. I think what can happen sometimes, if you're fortunate, people that are fortunate or go through a long season of being fortunate, they can or what can I don't want to say they, all of us are susceptible to this. We can try to insulate ourselves from problems, protect our isolate ourselves, keep it all at bay, all the hurt in the world. But it's like the reality is if you're not going through it, good. But also know that you will. And so we should never lose touch with it. We should be helping people that are going through it if you're not going through it. And then if
Mm,
you are going through it, yeah, lean on people, like you said, lean on family, friends, experts, professionals, whatever you got to do to put one foot in front of the other and make it to the other side.
mhm.
Um, challenging.
You know what never occurred to me? You just sparked a thought because you said we all go through it. Everyone goes through it, and I agree because life is an ebb and flow, right? It's up, it's down, and sure, there's long periods of up, and sometimes there's long periods of down, and happens to different people at different times. I think that the challenge is important because that's how we grow, shape, develop. And if we're like insulated from bad, that is not good. That is actually horrible. And so try to learn to embrace the bad because the bad is actually unrealized good because it'll take you from here to there. If everyone goes through it though, why is it like that so many people are alone or suffer in silence? Do you know what I mean? If everyone has the same human experience of
Yeah,
shit being shit sometimes?
man, that's a wild thing, huh? It's like a real trick of the brain. It's a real trick of the brain. Um, I've gone through it where, yeah, I mean, anything. My first assumption is I'm the only one going through this.
Mm,
We always begin with that assumption, man. Like, oh man, no one can relate. Um, but if I take that first step of opening up the conversation, that first brave step,
mhm,
in my experience, what I found is people are like, oh yeah, I know, I'm, I've been through that, or I'm right there too, and I thought no one else was going through it, you know. But it requires that first step. I'm sure you remember that in the last, year and a half of when you had to take a little step and
Mm.
open up a conversation, and then someone came to you and said, "Hey, I've been through that," or "That's normal
Yeah.
to think that or feel that," you know?
I think a lot of these myths go away when people start to talk about them more freely. I was speaking literally yesterday with Lee Jennings, the lead singer of a band called The Funeral Portrait, and he's a big dude. You know, he's over 200 pounds, over 6 feet. I think he said he was 6'4". I'm over 6 feet, and I'm
Mhm,
over 200 pounds. We're both like smart, relatively intelligent, strong men. But we were both bullied and alone and isolated in middle school and high school. Less so high school for me, but middle school for sure. And people assume that that only happens to like a certain part of the population, not like a big, strong jock,
mhm.
but it can and it does. And so I think that we need to share these stories more. And when people hear them, they can relate and hopefully, therefore, like not avoid these things, but get through them faster, which brings me back to what you're doing with your wordsmithery and all the music and poetry and prose that you're putting out to the universe, because that is a form of this help.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's been one of my favorite discoveries in music from the beginning is putting something out there that feels vulnerable, whether it's about relationships, as a young man and trying to make sense of that, and um trying to make sense of not feeling desirable and
Mhm.
and then how that's making me respond, and just kind of processing that out loud in music, or um or talking about being the immigrant African kid, and trying to understand how the world views me, how I view myself, what it means to be a good person, what it means to fit in. Just putting that stuff out there, sometimes without any answers. A lot of times before I've arrived at any clear answer, but just throwing it out there in music. And then what I've gotten back is faces in the audience that are relating, that are eager to hear those words because they're like, yeah, I'm there. I feel that. So yeah, music definitely is like reaching out, but I'll say this at the same time. Um, Even artists are human beings, and real healing is in relationship. And this is why you see a lot of artists go through some major downs and struggle with some major problems, and sometimes leading to the ultimate end, because all of that fanfare and people receiving your vulnerability and even getting paid for it and all that stuff, it's great, but it's not exactly love.
Mhm.
It's not exactly acceptance. Not truly. Not in the way that I think really heals people, which is in those intimate relationships.
Yeah.
Those are still people out there at the end of the day. They aren't actually, you know,
I mean,
it's
there's
interesting.
there's whole industries built around this, right? And there's let's not sugarcoat it. There's a lot of manipulation and ego and greed that comes into these things. And if you're a fantastic artist and you have a certain skill set and an audience, and people say, "Hey, I can make money off of this," they might, and they might manipulate you. They might take advantage of the situation. And if you don't have that self-love, that healing, that wherewithal ahead of time, there's a greater chance you're going to fall victim to that. So
Big,
it's so important to get, again, be inward and
yeah,
strong inward.
yeah, big time. And again, I think part of the challenge for artists is because it looks so much and feels so much like acceptance and love.
Mm,
It's so close, but it's not really the thing. And it can go away at any moment.
yeah,
And then what happens if it goes away and you haven't actually truly resolved that stuff? Well, then you're left worse than when you started,
yeah.
because you've been up here and now you're down here, you know? So it's all really challenging. The other example that's coming to mind is athletes, because when you were talking about the importance of putting this stuff out there, I'm thinking about conversations I've seen or articles I've read in the last few years where NBA players, I'm a big basketball guy, writing these pieces about having panic attacks, about dealing with depression. Again, to your point, big, tall, strong, successful. Like, we don't think of NBA players as having depression.
Mhm.
But for some of these guys, I remember the first one stepped out and was like, this is a thing I've struggled with. And there was two or three that happened right after that. And it suddenly opened up. I think the whole public was like, oh yeah, like these are 23-year-old guys in high pressure jobs
Yep.
that have lived lives as kids and teenagers, like you brought up being in junior high, where they've lived through things that they carry with them.
Mhm.
That doesn't go away when someone gives you a 5-year, $100 million contract. Getting bullied doesn't make it go away.
Yeah.
It's still part of you, you know?
I mean, I would assume that getting 100 million at 25 after going through all those things would only exacerbate the problem.
Yep.
But I mean, think of how many therapists you
Yeah.
can pay for.
It only exactly, it only exacerbates the problem, because you don't have that grounding, and now you have all these people around you,
Yeah.
again, giving you something that looks and feels a lot like love but isn't love.
Mhm.
Yeah, that only makes it way worse.
It's so true, and it's not that money is the root of all evil or that success is bad. It's that you need to be more stable or healthy mentally to be able to handle that and appreciate it. Can money buy happiness? No, happiness is internal. Money can definitely make your life easier and buy back your time and give you a lot of fun and happiness, but it's not true happiness. That love, it's
Yeah.
always going to be from the self.
It's always going to be from the self, and the money can just, again, it can mask it for longer,
Mhm.
mask the problem for longer, can push the problem down the road for longer, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So talk to me more about anew because we were kind of talking about your kids and that was kind of you're at a stage of reflection and renewal in your life. Other than being a father, were there other cataclysms that
Yeah.
impacted this?
Yeah. The thing I was actually really thinking about, um, was I was thinking about our world, and I was thinking about, okay, we live in a world where it's very fraught. Okay. There's a lot of division, there's a lot of problems, there's a lot of crises, there's a lot of emerging things that, if they're not crises, well, we don't know if they're good or bad. Like AI, we're kind of okay, it's emerging, it's going to
Yep.
be life changing, uh and we're trying to grapple with it. And the thing I was thinking about was how some of these problems, some of these crises, some of these tensions, I feel like maybe what they come down to is, on some level, maybe we are clinging to outdated things. So, for example, if you look at the environment, right, and we're concerned, most of us are concerned about the environment. We're seeing the changes. We're hearing what the scientists are saying. But the challenge is that what's required of us is doing something a new way.
Hmm.
And it's hard to do things a new way. It's hard on a big societal level. It's hard on an individual level. It's like, it's part of why people talk about, say, toxic relationships, and people are like, I'm trapped in a toxic relationship. Well, some observer might say, well, why don't you just leave? Well, because it's hard to do something new.
Yeah.
I've been in this relationship for 10 years. It's hard to do something new. So I was thinking about it on that big scale of, like, a lot of our issues and problems. Um, you know, I know you mentioned the podcast. Don't want it to be too political, but to give another political
Yeah.
example, you know, my sense of the MAGA situation is partly that I think there's a lot of people that are clinging to something make America great again, like something, instead of going, how can I be brave and courageous and step into what's new, what's emerging, what's coming, what is?
Mhm.
So I was thinking about it on that kind of bigger level, but I was also thinking about it on that individual level too, and how it's hard on just a personal human level to do something different, to step into the unknown. To give another example that I reflect on the album is just as an artist, especially nowadays, it's a very challenging industry. It always has been a challenging industry, but man, it's very disorienting and dizzying and challenging now.
Mhm.
Um, and that can make artists be afraid. That can make us be afraid to use our voice, to try something new, to experiment, to stand out, to risk.
Yeah.
But we have to do it. We have to find the courage to do it. And if you do it, a lot of times there's something great on the other side.
Yeah.
But it takes courage because you're stepping into the unknown.
Yeah.
You're going somewhere you haven't gone before, maybe other people haven't gone before. And so that does require courage. So that's I was thinking about all of that, man. I think the album at the end of the day is about courage.
That's really cool. It's most of what you said, I totally agree with. From a big picture perspective, you need to have courage to go into the unknown. I mean, T.S. Eliot once said, "Only those who risk going too far know how far one can go."
Mm,
But you also existentially have to be willing to accept if you make a mistake. And I
yeah.
think that's part of the problem, right? There's so much ego, there's so much shame that's happening that people will stand on a soapbox and say, I'm pro this or anti this. That's how they feel. That's their position. They might learn something and then their position changes, but they're too embarrassed to say, I was wrong or I feel differently now. And that's also okay. And I think we need to somehow get away from that societally. I don't know what the answer is. I
Yeah.
mean,
You know what?
just
And I'll tell you, I think that's been a curious evolution for me because I'm 43. I don't feel that old. And yet I remember a time, and I still feel like this is true, where your your virtue, your morality was not your opinions.
mm,
If you were a good person, if you had integrity, that had more to do with how you tried to consistently live out every day in your relationships, in your work. How did you show up on a consistent basis? That was character.
yeah,
Your opinions about things were subject to changing. Like you said, they were positions.
yeah,
They, they begin with when you're a kid and you're down whatever's downloaded to you from your parents, and then and your experiences either you know either confirm or challenge that, and then you grow and you move and those positions change. All of
mhm,
that was like amoral. That
yeah,
was just that was just what you thought. And if you got more or less education or had more or less experiences, that might change and shift.
yeah,
But your and so you could be okay with letting that grow and evolve and change because it wasn't so core. People didn't view it as so core. If I shift my position on this, well, then who am I? Your
mhm,
opinions weren't who you are. Your opinions weren't who you are. For me, when I was growing up, and
yeah,
I still believe that's true, your opinions are not who you are. Your opinions are just what you think based on what you've been exposed to. Who you are is how you show up in your relationships and your work every day.
yes, I love that, Chad. Like the character is so key. It's man, that's so apt, and I love it.
But it's curious to me because I saw it shift. Like
I
that
think
changed.
it did, but I think you're right. I think that technology is moving so quickly, and unfortunately, there's people. again, on all sides of all industries, of all sides of all politics that are using things to their advantage, and a lot of that is technology. So, in our lifetime, we've seen the advent of, internet and computers, laptops, then mobile phones, now smartphones, now crypto, and then or blockchain technology, then AI. Every single one of those is getting to 1 billion users at a faster and faster pace. So
Mhm.
society is actually moving faster. I mean, AI is unreal. It seems like chat came out of nowhere and all of a sudden is ubiquitous. Everyone is using chat, and now there's all these people that are trying to like put in place policy to help people, but they're like, oh my god, this genie is so far out of the bottle, it's impossible. I mean, it's like in our lifetime we saw Uber, right? I
Yeah,
remember a guy from Warner, Ian. He was like, we were at some event, and he's like, "Yeah, watch this. I'm gonna pull up my app and get an Uber." And now, like, that's all you think about. I haven't taken a taxi in 10 years.
yeah,
No shade to taxis. It's just because the technology has changed. So
yeah,
maybe because of the fact that technology is moving at warp speed, because people are taking advantage of these tools, they're then conditioning the youth to see things in 15-second clips or short little TikToks. They're distilling stuff down to sound bites rather than longer form
yeah.
conversation discussion, which is how you and I informed that character.
Yeah, 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 and we were shaped by exactly, and we're shaped by the people totally. It is the short form, and it is also the very, a lot more text form as well, like, a lot more just
Yeah.
you can just, put into language as opposed to listen, human beings aren't just, language creatures,
Mhm.
we're embodied creatures. There's some people that are less good with words. What they are good with is how they show up. That's how they express love, that's how they express who they are, that's how they express all sorts of things, and yet, all of us have been reduced to our character is reduced to what can you say in 140 characters or 280 characters or a 15-second clip with the text at the bottom. It's like, well, okay, yeah, that's what we've reduced,
Yeah.
a really complex, multi-dimensional creature down to that. And we've reduced something as important and substantial as character
Mhm.
down to a couple lines of text. Right. So yeah, so that's definitely, that's happened through technology. And unfortunately, we haven't stopped to be reflective about that and go, okay, this stuff has come around. How is it shaping us? What's good? What's bad? Let's talk about it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that for me is like fundamentally the most important thing about being a parent and about being a part of society is education. There's no one education. We need to constantly learn as many different things as possible, travel the world, understand different languages, different perspectives, different personalities, different people. That's how you're going to grow and evolve. Like growing up, thankfully to my parents who are Eastern Europeans, they came to Canada, by necessity basically. They met here, they were a family, they had old school Eastern European values. Morality was always important. They were not religious, but it was like be good for goodness sake. It's important to be
Mhm.
hardworking, be good. Like we have nothing. Look how much we've built. And then in terms of the friends that I kept from like a young age on, there was no color. This was Canada. I have black friends, I got Jewish friends, I got white friends, I got Irish friends, I've got Muslim friends. It's all over. And when we get together, like we rip on each other. And it's not racist. It is just us having fun because we're not like our character is not like that. They're
Yeah.
jokes.
Yeah.
We love each other and we would be the first to support each other. But that personality that I developed was I think through education, from what my parents taught me, from what high school taught me, from what university and colleges and traveling taught me. And the amount of things I did when I was a kid that I hated that I then appreciated later in life were just vast. I mean, like, I didn't want to take piano, but because of that, I learned music. I didn't wanna learn languages, but because of that, I can speak to other people or understand certain things. I can relate better to this person because I speak a little bit of Czech. I didn't wanna go to Broadway shows when I was 14 because they were boring, but now I can say I've seen Phantom and Les Mis, and I understand different things about the world and
Yeah.
arts. That's the key, man, is, like, keep learning. Don't stagnate, and you're not gonna learn from the phone. My girlfriend is an amazing woman, and I have nothing but love for her, but this is an example. She's 10 years younger than me. You were talking about age just now and society and technology. So that decade of difference has resulted, or it resulted in someone who, um, was apprehensive to talk to people on the phone. She was scared of making phone calls. She had never been to a bank before because the concept of going into a bank and speaking to a teller was not just foreign, but like scary.
Yeah.
I've been talking to her and explaining things and kind of working on things as much as I could to show her a difference. But it's crazy to think that because people are on this device or whatever it is, that that whole other human experience they miss.
Yeah, and then you end up cutting off future learning. Like as you were talking about how you grew up and your parents doing this great job of giving you exposure to different things. That was the main thing that it made me think is okay, you go to a Broadway play, it doesn't necessarily make you a fan of musicals, you know what I mean? It might not be your bag, but you're not intimidated to go to a play. Someone invites you to the theater, you're not intimidated by that.
Yeah,
If you meet someone who is a stage actor, you're not intimidated by them, you can engage them in conversation a little bit. And and that's just really, really good and really, really healthy. You know, I just put my oldest daughter in soccer and she's on the soccer field. She hates it. It's not her thing. You can tell she hates it. She kicks the ball and then is happy to just like not chase after it and not. But for me and my wife, a big thing is we want her to be in a position where if she's 16 years old and she's at camp or with friends and they roll out a soccer ball, she's not intimidated. She's not scared. If
mhm,
people are watching the World Cup and having fun, she doesn't back away from that experience
yeah,
and disengage. And this is where the self-awareness piece comes in again, because what happens with a lot of people when they are intimidated because they don't have exposure, they don't have experience, they get antagonistic towards the thing.
yeah,
Oh, I hate soccer. I hate Broadway plays. And it calcifies and it becomes part of their personalities because it's hard to have the self-awareness to realize I don't actually hate it. I'm a little bit intimidated
yeah,
because I haven't been exposed to it, and maybe I feel a little bit of shame about that too. Self-awareness is hard. So
yeah,
so when you give a kid exposure, education, you brought up your friends. Man, like the exposure we can get in Canada to the whole world through each other is
mhm,
amazing.
I agree.
We get to learn about the world through each other. We get to learn about the nuances of what we deal with,
Mhm,
and the different places that we come from, and we also learn not just the differences but the similarities,
yeah,
which is beautiful too. I remember somebody playing me, I forget the country, but it was in Eastern Europe, and they were playing like the folk music and the traditional singing. And I'm like, man, that's a lot like the traditional singing in Rwanda.
yeah, that's
And
cool.
it's like, oh yeah, man, because the world's been connected a lot longer than we think, and human beings are human beings, you know?
Mhm,
So, anyways, but that exposure, man, that exposure um is so key to like shaping us to helping us remain open and not stagnate. It's big. It's big.
yeah.
Your parents did a good thing.
And all we can do is appreciate that, learn from it, and then hopefully instill some of those values into our own children. And maybe through conversation like this or amazing albums, we can help disseminate that idea to other people too.
Man, that's been one of the I think that's one of the coolest things about music is you listen to music and you go into another world,
Yeah.
another person's world, another musical culture. You go there. And what you discover there is they're a lot like me.
Mhm.
I remember listening to the Beach Boys for the first time and being like, "Wow, I love this." I'd never been to California. I was not a white kid in the 50s, you know, but I recognized something familiar,
Yeah.
and that's one of the gifts of music is we get to do that. You get to travel in one sense and discover in that travel people are the same.
Mhm.
I relate to this person. They're
Yeah.
talking about lost love. I've had lost love. They're talking about the challenges of growing up. I know that. You know what I mean? They're talking
Yeah.
about grief. They're talking about all these experiences that are universal, but just in a different language or in a different style or
Yeah. I
man.
mean, it it's funny. So I'm wearing this shirt. I thought about this before this chat, and we discover things at certain times in our lives, and they become important. That discovery point is important. This band's fourth album is how I discovered this band, and so for me, that album is so good. A lot of fans of the Bronx will say that's like their worst album. That's fine. My experience was this. With you, and this goes to the point you just made, with you, it was hip hop evolution. Like I
Mm,
knew you there before I knew you as a musician. And hip hop evolution spoke to me because of the person who loves music, person who loves different genres, person who loves culture and history, and a lot of it I already knew, but there was so much new and it was done in a really cool way. And so I was like, wow, who is this guy? He is so fucking lucky talking to all these people. I love the stories and anecdotes. Oh my God, he's got music as well. And that was my journey. And
dope.
it's different for everyone, but it's important to constantly go into that journey, I think.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You go into that journey and yeah, and you discover something new and at the same time something familiar. That's
Yeah.
the part that I think is awesome, and sometimes it also gives you this kind of cool safe distance. I'm going to misquote this, but I remember reading about some studies about psychology and music and how when people listen to sad music, for example, it's like they're touching those feelings of sadness in themselves, but at this safe kind of distance where it's healing instead of like further traumatizing or whatever. So yeah, man, music is so powerful, and so you got to go on that journey. You hear
Mhm.
something interesting, see something interesting. Okay, let me go deeper down that because who knows what you might find. Um,
That
yeah,
it's a really interesting point, and I think that the safe space is so key, and that's unfortunately something that we don't have in society right now because you say something, and so somehow we've been conditioned to say, "That person said that, that immediately means he's far left or far
mhm,
right, or he's racist or anti this or pro this or whatever it is." That's
mhm.
not the case. That's just something that I'm saying right now. That's not my character, to go back to what you're saying, and so being raised, in Toronto or living in Toronto, growing up in Toronto, my buddies, my guys' nights group was myself, Eastern European, old white guy, so to speak, stereotype. Um, two brothers who were born in Toronto but of Jamaican heritage. Japanese guy, one of my best friends in the entire world. Jewish guy, Indian. I think Montu is Sikh. I could be wrong. Irish guy and Iranian guy, Reza. And we ripped on each other and we had different opinions and we offended each other and we were, just all the bad things towards each other, but none of it was malicious. It was all our character. And because it was a safe space with probably too many drinks and too much smoke, um, no one ever left angry. And we
Yeah,
got mad and we yelled and we swore, but then we said, but this and but that. And it was conversational. And we learned and grew as young men into better people. And I wasn't great. I was loud and opinionated. And one of my challenges in life was learning how to bring more love and logic, bring more calm to my narrative and how I expressed myself. And other people had to learn how to speak up because they were too meek. You know what I mean? And how do we create that safe
yeah,
space? This is
yeah.
society.
We all got to learn, but we all have different kinds of learning to do. But again, man. this is where I'm like, man, am I really that old? Like, because my thing is just like, I don't know why people feel like they got to broadcast every position that they have.
I know.
Some things can happen in the context, some conversations can happen in the context of trusted friendships, of family.
Yep.
I mean, I just don't know why people have this sense that you can't do that, where there is all that context. The- It's just, yeah, it's not just context. It's how you say things as a human being, as a person, as a unique person. I have a way of expressing myself. I'm talking to you. We've only known each other for about an hour, but you're already probably picking up consciously or subconsciously on if I say things with this little quarter smile,
Yes.
what I'm communicating versus a full smile. When if I'm more serious, like there's all these subtleties, and it's all communication. It's
Hmm.
all part of the message of what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't know why or where exactly it happened or why it happened so quickly and seemingly irreversibly that people feel like they can't have conversations reserved for their community of friends. You
Yeah.
just don't have to broadcast your point of view on every single thing.
Yeah.
I don't
Then
know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm old
no,
and I'm wrong, but that's really how I feel is again, we don't have to reduce ourselves all the time to two
yeah.
lines of text. We can live embodied lives in the communities that we exist in. That's okay.
Yeah, I I agree. Too much is shared, and there's nothing wrong with having things private. I don't maybe it's technology, maybe there's a level of psychology, psychiatry, biology that I don't understand that I'm not gonna talk about here, but the concept of, dopamine hits from someone liking a post, and then if you're not a strong, healthy person internally, if you don't love yourself and you're putting that into that. Maybe that's how this happens. Maybe the lack of love or the loss of self-love is what we need to address.
Yeah, I think that could be it for some people. I think there's also a dynamic that's happened really subtly where the idea of privacy has taken on like a negative connotation.
Yeah,
And I think that's the social media companies nudging that idea forward subtly. Whereas in my culture, Rwandan culture, we're very private people, like that's our culture. Um, Traditionally, like if I ran into you in the grocery store, like you shouldn't really look at my food and I shouldn't look at your food. Like we're private. That's our culture.
yeah,
And yet private has come to take on a bit of a negative connotation of secretive or kind of, disingenuous or I don't know, like something negative
yeah,
instead of just like actually it comes from culture and in many cultures it actually speaks to more like having discipline and having uh again character like around things like discipline and around things like respecting boundaries and around things like cultivating good relationships because if you want to have with a family like if you want to have a healthy family relationship well you have to keep some things for your family,
yep,
right? We do this. I don't have dinner with everybody every night. I have dinner with my family most nights, and that extends to other things, like whether that's sharing things about your life or whatever. You reserve that for certain relationships. That's not because you're disingenuous or duplicitous or it's because you have discipline, you have boundaries, and you have respect for certain relationships, and that's how you cultivate them. Anyways, so I do think, yeah, part of it could be what you're talking about in terms of people getting the dopamine hit and it filling a void or seeming to fill a void. And another part of it, I think, is this subtle agenda social media companies have of getting rid of the idea of privacy.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like there's so many different factors. I don't know why, but I just thought of families too. I feel like a lot of people now are I see it, and I don't speak ill of these people. I'm just saying that observationally, not critically, that a lot of people seem to have kids, but then not want to parent because parenting is hard work and it takes a lot of time, and they want to do things for themselves in their lives. That's okay, no shade. My perspective position on the parenting is that you can have your life and you can do things, but you have to also be present and show up for your kids and show up for your family. It has to be balance.
Yeah.
Um, and so if your kids aren't getting that guidance up until a certain age from the people who created them, they're going to fall victim to the guidance of other people within the system that might not have the best interest for those children.
Yeah. And the real scary thing now. So when we were growing up, if you weren't getting guidance from your parents, at least you had some sense of where you were getting guidance from.
Yeah.
It was probably X, Y, and Z, individuals
Hmm.
that you knew of in the area, influences that are there that you know of them because they're real human beings and they're around,
Yeah.
or it was this popular movie, this popular show, this popular music. Now the influence that our kids can get, we have no idea because if they're scrolling, it's whatever shows up
Yeah.
next, which could be somebody getting a bullet through the neck. It could be who knows what it is
Yeah.
that they happen to scroll and
Which
see
you don't want them
next.
to see.
So it's like it's even worse than they're not getting the influence of the people who love them the most. It's that you don't even know what the influence might is. That's what's scary to me. My kids are allowed. I grew up watching TV. I let my kids watch TV, but they have to pick a show and watch the show. They're not allowed to scroll, and
Yeah.
they got to watch it together.
I'm the same.
They got to sit beside each other. At least it's a thing that they're doing together as siblings, and they're picking a thing and they're watching a thing. Because the scrolling, I don't know what you're watching if you scroll.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it is. And I know these companies don't care what they show you.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword because I do believe that, we should be allowed to pick and choose what we see, and I think that we should be allowed to have ultimate expression of everything. Growing up, obviously the technology wasn't as rampant, but I remember with the advent of video games and wrestling and other things, the argument was this is bad and it causes violence, and my parents, love them, said in our position, it's not the video game that causes violence. It's the parents not controlling what the children are watching. If you're too young to be handling this, then you shouldn't have it. So we're saying no to Mortal Kombat until you're 14 or whatever it is, because we don't want you to see, even if it's a game, the decapitations or whatever. It's a simple concept. It's easier said than done, but it requires that level of work, that level of curation from a parent.
Totally. And in that at that time it was possible because you could as a parent become aware that there's a game called Mortal Kombat. There's not a million video games, right? There
Yeah.
was like you go to Blockbuster, I know what the video games are based on what other parents are saying with the time. Okay, Mortal Kombat, that's the one. This is what it is. Okay, you can't watch it. Now the problem is there's 8 billion videos and I don't know which one my kid might see.
Yeah.
If if they can even if they even open the app, I don't know what they're gonna see. So my rule is like you can't even they know they're not allowed to open YouTube. Like it's just you can open Disney Plus You can pick this show. I always give them 2 shows. I say, "You want this one or this one?" And even when they wanna scroll and see more, I'm like, "Nope, this one or this one." They pick one, and the only rule is no touching the computer.
Yeah.
Let it play.
I mean, I might sound old as well, but I'm the same way when it comes to phones and tablets. I don't have all the answers. I'm just
No.
doing my best thing, and so I remember getting into this whole idea of don't look at what companies are doing. Don't look what society's doing. Look at what the CEOs are doing. And I remember, like, at that time, this article was talking about how Jobs was like, I am not letting my kids have iPhones and tablets. They are really bad for children. And I remember those, like, the Heinz guy or the Kraft guy saying, like, I am never letting my kids have Lunchables and these things because they're horrible for kids. And for me, it was such a simple idea. And I said, okay, I'm going to emulate that. I'm going to try to do that as best I can. Um, and maybe this is a big picture, like come back to beginning of conversation. I've long since felt that it's so wrong for us to judge each other based on our choices and actions because most of us are coming from a place of love. I use the parents as the example. You and I probably will disagree on so many different things about what to do with their kids. I don't want to go into all of them, but there's just so many decisions you make as a parent from 0 to 18, right? Like that some people are this and some people are that. None of that is wrong because inherently most parents love their children and are trying to genuinely do the best thing for their safety and well-being and success that they can based on their information set. So how could I judge you as a
Yep.
parent for making the wrong decision when you inherently are making the decision that you think is right?
Yeah. So listen, when you say that, what that, makes me know is that you love your kids, because that's why you assume that of somebody else. When I see people be judgmental and distrustful, to me, they're just telling on themselves.
Mm,
I'm like, "So you are not trustworthy. So you are judgmental and you are," you know what I mean? When you say that, it's like, yeah, I agree with you 100% because I also love my kids, and so it's difficult for me to imagine somebody not loving their kids,
yeah,
and not coming from the best place that they can think of to come from. As much as we may disagree, you know what I mean, about the right thing about, whatever, it's difficult for me to imagine somebody coming from any place less than trying their best, even like you're talking about, our generation of parents sometimes don't want to parent or find it really challenging. I even have sympathy for that because the funny thing about becoming a parent is like you don't know until you have your kid if you're going to be any good at it, if it's something that you kind of like, that you or not. But in any case, you're stuck with, like, in any case, you're there. It's almost, to me, it's almost like getting hired for a job that you can't get fired from,
yeah,
and you can't leave for like 25 years or whatever, but you have no idea if you have a skill set that's going to make it easier for you or not,
mm,
so I even sympathize with parents who are, I'll go ahead and say, bad parents for honest reasons. Like, they're actually not good. Like,
yeah,
it's hard for them, it's unintuitive, maybe they have their own baggage and trauma. But in any case, it's not that they don't love their kids. It's like they're honest to God bad at it, the same way I'm honest to God bad at so many things, skiing or whatever. Like, so even that's a dynamic that can exist. You know what I mean? And I sympathize with that. I get it. I know a lot of parents that have a really hard time, and it's because they suck at it. Like,
yeah,
really, honestly, suck at it. It's not. They love their kids. They just don't get how to be with kids.
yeah. I mean, I love my kids. I love being around my kids. I have all the respect in the world for people who choose to be around kids all day long. It's a lot of work, and it's not something that I Want to venture into anytime soon.
Yeah, no, no, totally, and it always amazes me too when I talk with elementary school teachers that are very good at it, and I'll notice they'll have these little insights where they'll be like, "Yeah, I do this with my grade threes because I remember being in grade three and I had to do this and I didn't like it," and I'm like, "Man, I don't remember grade three at all. Like, you're a natural because sometimes I've been brought in to talk to classes. And if the class is like grade five or grade six, it's like I forget how to not talk the way that we're talking.
Yeah,
So I'm using words they've never heard before and whatnot. I think I'm talking down, but I'm not, I'm not talking it down. Some people are really, really, really good with kids. And so they can handle 30 of them for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. Most people are not built for that.
yeah. I I think we need more of this in society. We need to go back to the simplicity of just having conversation. And I'm sure you and I could wax for many more hours, but you probably have other things to do.
Mm.
From Kenya to Canada, we're similar age. We've lived essentially half our lives, which is, a crazy thought. You're on like a really cool mission of self-discovery, of spirituality, and you're sharing that story with the world. I mean, all of us are on that same um, journey, but you have this album coming out in Halloween. You've done so much. You're talking to teachers and doing things with video. Where are you going? What do you wanna do? What is the goal?
Yeah. I always take it one step at a time. And I've felt that way from the very beginning. I feel like you just got to take it one step at a time, one project at a time. And at this point, I'm just really happy to have this album done. This feels like the end of a certain story I've been telling over the last couple albums, the end of a certain exploration I've been doing, thinking about the world and thinking about what's going on, but also what's going on within us that's driving it. And so I feel really good about concluding that story. And we'll see what's next. I've really enjoyed the last little while. I've also enjoyed teaching. I've had the opportunity to teach at my alma mater at Laurier, a little bit at U of T. So, if more of those opportunities open up, that feels really natural too at this age and stage to just share, from my experience. So I hope to get to do that more too.
Good for you, and I'm sure you will.
Thank you.
Always grinding.
No doubt.
What do you wanna say? I ask you questions. What do
Yeah.
you say to close off?
Oh man, not much, man. I appreciate this conversation. I obviously I'm a music guy. You got to know me through Hip Hop Evolution. I love music, but it's always been a lot bigger than music for me. And so it's great to have a conversation like this where yeah, we touch on music, but we also spend a lot more time on other things. So I appreciate you for that.